Welcome to the Women Leaders Association Daily Member Podcast, where we believe we go further, faster, and have more fun when we go together. I'm your host, Julianne Kirkland. And in each Daily Member Podcast, we will pick out a great speaker from one of our meetings that we thought you would enjoy. You can access hundreds of recent speakers, book summaries, great articles, and more at no additional charge through your membership portal. If you would like to get involved in a Women Leaders Association mastermind group or find a networking group near you, or if you just need access to the membership portal, simply go to womenleaderspodcast.com to be connected. Now let's tune in for this incredible message.
Let's meet today's speaker, Bethany Acheson. I'm so excited she's on to talk with us today. Bethany is a user experience designer at Haven Technologies. She is part of a design team that supports the user experience within an advanced platform for life, annuity, and disability insurance. Bethany is a graduate of Boston University with a BA in art history. She began her career as a user experience designer 5 years ago after completing an immersive 10-week boot camp at General Assembly. Her experience as a photographer and digital artist, as well as her background in the arts, has contributed significantly to her success as a designer. She considers herself a user experience generalist, conducting extensive research, planning, design thinking workshops, and testing prototypes with her users before putting her designs into production. Bethany lives in Beverly, Massachusetts with her husband, 2 children, 2 cats, and a dog. She enjoys running, skiing, photography, and a good crossword puzzle. Bethany, the floor is all yours. I'm going to go ahead and put myself on mute and just let me know when you're ready to go to the next slide.
Great. Thank you so much for that awesome intro. I'm so excited to be here today. I am going to talk to you today about something that I actually hold very near and dear to my heart. It's called the growth mindset. You may have heard this term growth mindset in the past. Maybe you've already been introduced to it, the concept itself. But regardless, today we're going to be diving into some more information about the growth mindset. And I'm going to tell you some stories about how it's come into play in my lifetime and will continue to, and allow me to continue to be successful. And hopefully you have used the growth mindset in your past and will use it in your future as well. So, okay, take a look at these 2 statements. I was born with a certain amount of intelligence and I really can't do much to change it. And then we have statement B. Intelligence can grow over time. It doesn't matter what your IQ was when you were born. Or when you were 10, I'm sorry. to say 10. Think about these 2 statements for a moment. The first implies that no matter what you learn or how you grow as a human, your intelligence will remain static. The second counters this belief, stating that intelligence is fluid and that as a human, you have control over your intelligence. Which of these statements do you identify with? Make a mental note, and we'll come back to this in a little bit. It's very possible to even kind of growth mindset in conversations at work or even in a team training of some sort. That's where I happen to hear about the concept for the first time. And I was shown a slide similar to the one that we are looking at right now together. The slide is actually really small, so it's really hard to read. So what I did was I took the information from each side and typed it on either side to make it larger so you could actually see what was going on in there. So 2 mindsets are represented here. On the left, we have our fixed mindset, and on the right, we have what's known as our growth mindset. So we're going to talk about the fixed mindset a little bit here first. A person with a fixed mindset is going to look for the easiest way out. If things become too difficult or challenging, a human with a fixed mindset will usually give up and quit and move on to something else that they've already mastered or that they're already good at. With a fixed mindset, effort is kind of a waste of time. It's way easier to keep on keeping on with the things that are easy and that come to you naturally. If you have to work hard to master a new skill, then it must mean, you're just not really good at it in the first place. With a fixed mindset, criticism and negative feedback feels really humiliating, and it's proof that you're a failure. With a fixed mindset, watching others succeed feels threatening. There's often a lot of jealousy involved. Don't get me wrong, there are plenty of successful people out there that operate with a fixed mindset on a daily basis. And you may even be one of those people, and I don't hold it against you. What's unfortunate is that with the willingness to risk failure and put in some extra work, they could, the folks with the fixed mindset could be even more successful. They typically have more potential than they allow themselves. And the result is a deterministic view of the world. Now, counter this, we have our growth mindset. With a growth mindset, challenges are sought after and embraced. Challenges are seen as a chance to grow and learn. With a growth mindset, obstacles are seen as opportunities. There may be setbacks and some heartbreak along the way, but that's accepted and pushed through with effort. With a growth mindset, effort is seen as the path to mastery, and it's a choice to try something and practice it, and sometimes totally bomb at it. But you know what? You may learn and you can try again. With a growth mindset, receiving criticism and negative feedback is actually seen as an opportunity rather than a paralyzing setback. With a growth mindset, the success of others is a source of inspiration, not jealousy. It provides lessons and insight. The growth mindset offers the potential to meet higher levels of achievement, resulting in a greater sense of free will. I decided to do some research to find out where this whole concept of the growth mindset versus the fixed mindset came from. After a Google search, I learned that a Stanford psychologist named Cheryl Dweck is the expert in this field of research. This concept of growth versus fixed mindset originated from her research studies. In one of her studies, Dweck gave 10-year-olds some puzzles to do. The puzzles were a little beyond their age level in terms of difficulty. And here's what she observed. Some students reacted with comments like, and I quote, "I love a challenge," or "I was hoping this would be informative." Some of the other students who tried these puzzles finished the exercise feeling like failures, and they weren't even able to finish them. And they said, "You know what? I'd consider cheating next time." And some of them looked around the room to see how others performed, trying to find children that did worse than them on the puzzles to make themselves feel better. Dweck explains that the growth mindset is the belief that a person's capacities and talents can be improved over time. Those with a fixed mindset believe that you either get it or you don't. And if you don't get it, well, that's no surprise because I suck at everything. And why even bother? Failure is inevitable. And as opposed to the growth mindset, where failure is viewed as an opportunity, a chance to learn and improve, with a fixed mindset, you failed because you're just a failure. And now it's time to move on to something easy that you're good at. Now I'm going to get real here for a minute, and I'm going to share a little something with you all about myself. If I'd been asked to speak in front of you about 15 years ago, there is absolutely no way I would have done it. I hate public speaking for the most part. I've gradually become more comfortable with it over time. I'm sure I'm not alone in this. I think it's a pretty common thing among people. But there's just no way I would have voluntarily put myself in this position. To be honest with you, when I look at this slide that we're looking at right now, I see characteristics of myself on both sides. I guess the thing is that the fixed mindset side is where I'd kind of refer to that as the old me, the me that would never have spoken in front of you today, where the right side, showing the growth mindset, is kind of like the new me, one that wants to take risks and is looking for a challenge. So you may be thinking, wait, aren't you just born with one mindset or another? Isn't it just you as a person? Isn't it just your personality? Can someone actually change from having a fixed mindset to having a growth mindset? Well, I would say yes, definitely. I absolutely think so. And your mindset can even change more than once. You may kind of drift back and forth between the two. So now it's story time. I'm going to tell you a little story, a little bit of background on myself. When I was in elementary school, I truly loved learning. I joked that recess was my favorite subject when I enjoyed learning really about everything, including math. Back then, math was kind of fun, actually. There was always one right answer in elementary school. It didn't require studying the same way that spelling or geography did. You either got it or you didn't. And if you did get it and you were careful and you didn't make any mistakes, it was pretty easy. Well, at least at first. And then along came middle school, and with that came algebra. I got the basics of algebra, but for some reason, the overall concept was just really hard for me to understand. It was also really frustrating. I was pretty successful when it came to school and learning, but the harder I tried at algebra, I just could not get it, and I became super frustrated. I stayed after school for extra help all the time. I retook tests, but I'd always just kind of managed to get by. And my average to kind of below average grades that I received were really probably more for the effort that I put in trying to do my best than for the actual grade itself. So I would say there were probably more mercy grades than anything. At a certain point, I decided that I just sucked at math, and that was it. End of story. And then I developed this fixed mindset in relation to anything involving numbers. I was a math failure in my eyes. I was so convinced that I would just never be good at it that I developed anxiety surrounding the entire subject. And as we all know, anxiety is unpleasant. And if you avoid that nervous, uncomfortable feeling by avoiding the thing that, makes you feel that way, then, why not just continue on as such and continue to feed that fixed mindset, right? So I ended up taking a statistics class the summer after my freshman year to complete my math requirement, thinking it would be my best and easiest way of passing. This would be my freshman year of college. So newsflash, statistics is still all about numbers. It's still math. I was so anxious and uncomfortable in this class that I barely passed with an embarrassing D. I didn't even give myself a chance to succeed by entering the class with such a negative attitude. As for the remainder of my college years, I signed up for as many art and art history classes as I could get away with, because for me, those classes came easily, and it was just something I was good at. After college, I had plans for graduate school. I'd stay at BU, where I'd earn my undergraduate degree in art history, and I'd work towards a master's degree in art administration. I was working in one of the administrative offices at BU, so it just kind of made sense to take advantage of that tuition reimbursement. I had it all figured out. Just a few more years of going to school part-time, and I'd be ready to start my career and have my master's degree. I was developing a growth mindset, and I wasn't even aware of it. I was excited about my future, working as a director in some cool contemporary art space. But guess what the first class was that I had to take towards my master's? And it was a required class that I had to complete in order to actually get my degree. So I couldn't avoid it. That class was called accounting, and no one had told me that I needed to learn accounting for a career in art administration. In retrospect, it makes total sense, of course, but at the time, didn't even think of it. My growth mindset was suddenly being replaced with my old deterministic mindset that I'd worked so hard to leave behind. After 2 weeks in that class, I decided that I was just going to drop it. I couldn't handle it. I avoided the challenge, and I gave up easily. I saw my effort as fruitless, or worse. I wasn't going to stick around for the inevitable negative feedback, and I stayed in my safe office job where I secretly felt jealous of my friend that was actually in the program and successfully completing it. And you know what? It was hard, and I gave up, and I'm not proud of it. For years after that, I'd work at various office jobs where I'd make just enough money to pay my rent, eat, and have a tiny bit of money to have some fun on the side. Those jobs were easy for the most part. They were pretty straightforward. You answered the phones, you made coffee, did the Staples order for supplies, that kind of thing. And soon I was completely bored out of my mind. And I found that in those times when I become too comfortable and things are just a little too mundane and start to get too easy, that's when, I really start to dread going to work every day. And then I'll reach my breaking point, which is good, because that's when I know it's time to try something new. I don't know if you've all been there, but I think it's, relatively common. To develop a skill, I wanted to develop a skill that would allow new opportunities to come my way, as opposed to, keep doing the same thing day in and day out. And that's when I pushed my fixed mindset aside and my growth mindset came out to play. So after my short-lived, relatively successful career as an administrative assistant, I wasn't really that great at it, I'm going to admit. I was ready to move on immediately. A job happened to open up in the art history department where I had worked. And yes, I was now working for the professors that taught me what I needed to in order to get my bachelor's degree. I wasn't even really qualified for the job, but I knew just enough that I convinced them and myself that I could handle it. So the growth mindset was back. Great. I was in charge of updating the department's website with the slides from each lecture that was given that week. There was only one little problem. I didn't know HTML, and I was the department's webmaster. And this was, early 2000s. So that could be a little bit of a problem. So I was able to get by for quite some time, just sort of copying and pasting code, modifying it just enough to get it to do what I wanted. And, I read some books, they taught me the basics. And I actually thought it was really cool. You could type in some code and then things just sort of magically appeared on a web page. So if you typed the code correctly, it just worked. And if you missed a character, like say a /, everything would just go crazy. And, your website wouldn't cooperate or it would just look terrible. So there was one answer when it came to that type of code that I was using, kind of like math, which was pretty interesting. I was actually getting into this. You offered a certificate program in web design and development. Back then they called it web design, which is pretty funny. I decided to give it the old college try. This time I was investing in learning. And not only so that I could do my job better, but also because I'd taken out a very hefty loan to pay for this 10-month program. And there was no way that I wasn't going to finish it. I learned the basics of HTML, QBasic, Photoshop, and animation. As I was about to finish my coursework, our country experienced the largest terrorist attack in its history. This attack, devastating on so many levels, seriously impacted the U.S. economy. And I'm talking about 9/11 here, of course. Job postings for the tech field were really scarce. It was not the best time to be leaving a certificate program in web design and looking for a job, especially if you're entry level. I just didn't have the background and I really needed something, just really like a starting position. So I had successfully completed the program and I was, ready to officially leave the BU campus and maybe actually try to find a job somewhere else. And then, my fixed mindset was just sort of slowly creeping back in because there was just really not a lot going on out there. I'd see a posting for a job, it would look promising, and then I'd see the list of requirements and, I just felt overwhelmed, like, oh, I can't do this. I don't know all of these things. I don't check all the boxes. And I just got discouraged. I really felt like I'd need to be an expert in order to be hired. Okay, so we're going to shift gears for a second here. I'm going to talk about Carol Druck a little bit again. She often speaks of a school in Chicago where a failing grade was replaced with a grade called not yet. The result was improved performance. When students were able to get past what she refers to as the tyranny of now, which would be failure, and focus instead on the power of yet, they adopted a growth mindset. This mindset allowed them to see what would normally be considered a failure as an opportunity to learn. As women, it's so easy for us to fall into a fixed mindset, and the tyranny of now when we're applying for jobs. While men tend to apply for jobs that are beyond their skill set, women often don't. Conjuring a growth mindset when applying or interviewing for a job will increase your opportunities and your confidence. When I'm interviewing someone for a job, the folks that are willing to learn something new for the job are excited at the prospect of expanding their knowledge in their field are the candidates that reach the top of my list. I never did find that web design job back then, but I did learn some skills from that certificate program that would put me on a slightly different path. I worked over a decade as a photographer and a digital artist, and I spent most of my time working in Photoshop. When I decided to go freelance after my kids were born, I'd made a successful career of retouching photos and creating photo compositions, and also finding the occasional photo shoot. 5 years ago, in my early 40s, I was ready for a change. I'd reached what felt like the limit in terms of my career, and I was really tired of just trying to chase down work. It's tough working for yourself. It's like working many jobs at once. My husband, who's a software engineer, had started his own small agency, and he suggested that I looked into user experience design. And to be honest, I really didn't understand what UX was, but I decided to start looking into it on his recommendation. Before I knew it, I'd signed up for a 10-week immersive course in UX. It had been 20 years since I'd sat in a classroom, and this time around, it was totally different. I never enjoyed learning so much. It was so rewarding to finish this 3-month program with a completed portfolio. Allowing my growth mindset to take control resulted in a kind of happiness that I hadn't felt in a really long time. And I feel like most people on this call probably do know what user experience design is, but just to give you a little background real quick, it's really, managing and designing experiences for users that are simple, intuitive, and making sure that you are actually designing for your user as opposed to just not really thinking about who's actually using your website or whatever your online experience is. It could be a platform, a software platform. So allowing myself the space to embrace a not yet mentality, I knew I couldn't fail as I entered this new phase of my career. 20 years later, as I applied for tech jobs once again, I had a brand new mindset. I didn't need to check every box on the job listing. I could respond to a question in an interview with, I don't know yet, but I'm excited to gain more experience and work with the team and learn. Remember these slides from the beginning? I did promise that I'd bring them back out and we would look at them again. So take a look at them again just for a second. And which one of these do you think demonstrates a fixed mindset? Yep, you can type it right there in the chat if you want. And what about the growth mindset? Which one do you think represents that? And as you're looking at these two statements, which one of them resonates more with you? I think that's a really important thing to think about. And which did you identify more with at the beginning? Do you feel like that changed as I was talking to you today, or I'm curious. You can feel free to write something in the chat if you'd like. Intelligence isn't limited to academics. In fact, Harvard professor Howard Gardner believes in the theory of multiple intelligences. Gardner proposed that there are in fact 8 intelligences with the possibility of a 9th called existential intelligence. With all these different types of intelligence, the sky is really the limit in terms of how the growth mindset can be applied. I've spoken a lot today about my own personal academic experiences and how I've adopted a growth mindset and how it's allowed me to evolve and achieve. If we consider all the types of intelligence that Gardner identified, then the application of the growth mindset is really limitless, isn't it? Think about professional athletes. None of them are born champions. They have to work at it constantly, learning about their sport and themselves along the way. They develop expertise over time, or what Gardner refers to as bodily kinesthetic intelligence. American gymnast Simone Biles was not performing seamlessly impossible feats on the balance beam when she was 5. In fact, she didn't even learn about gymnastics until she was 6 years old at a daycare field trip. A while back, I watched a documentary on HBO about the last 5 years of David Bowie's life. I happen to be a fan of the late artist's music. So the film focused mainly on the creation of his final album, Black Star, and another project I wasn't aware he worked on in his final years. Bowie knew he had cancer and he knew his time was running out, and he'd always wanted to write a musical. It was on his bucket list. 1 year before he died, at the end of 2015, Lazarus premiered on stage. This slide is still from one of those performances. As I was watching the Bowie documentary, there was a scene depicting a busy cityscape with a recording of him speaking over it. And it really stuck with me, and I want to share it with you. Even if you're not a Bowie fan, I still think it's a really great quote, and it's one that I really think about often. So here it goes. If you feel safe in the area you're working in, you're not working in the right area. Always go a little further into the water than you feel you are capable of being. Go a little bit out of your depth. And when you don't feel that your feet are quite touching bottom, you're just about the right place to do something exciting. Bowie's growth mindset allowed him to achieve something he'd always wanted to at the age of 68. A growth mindset can follow you throughout your life and well into your retirement years. Grandma Moses took up painting at the age of 78. Her work, Sugaring Off, sold for $1.2 million in 2008. Of course, she saw none of that money, which sadly is the case for many artists. I changed my career at 44. I'm now a UX designer at Haven Technologies, and I was fresh out of my certificate program when I applied for my first contract role as a designer. My experience with UX was brand new. My portfolio consisted of a group of classroom assignments. A year or so after I got my first UX job, I asked my coworker who'd interviewed me for my first role why they chose to hire me with so little UX experience. She said my interpersonal skills were what set me apart. The hiring team was more interested in hiring someone that could work well with the team and that was able to present. In other words, what set me apart from the other candidates wasn't just my design portfolio, but what Howard Gardner would call my interpersonal intelligence. These are not skills that I was born with. I don't know if you remember me mentioning earlier that public speaking was out of the question for me several years ago. I still feel awkward and anxious every time I stand in front of a group of people and have to speak. Like right now, for example. But I chose to adopt a growth mindset when it comes to public speaking, and I chose to push myself. I chose to leave my comfort zone. And when I agreed to talk to you all today, my feet were certainly not touching the bottom. And it was exciting. And is exciting. Over the past few years as a UX designer, I've taken the opportunity to facilitate design sessions, learn new software applications, and lead design initiatives. I've taken all these opportunities, even if they've taken me out of my comfort zone. Even if I didn't have the experience, I took them because of my growth mindset. Not only has my career benefited, but I've gained confidence, more confidence than I've ever had before. All right, we're almost done here. Before I go, I want to leave you with a quote from Carol Dweck, and then I'm going to leave you with my words. So here's her quote. Think of the times other people outdid you, and you assumed that they were smarter or more talented. Now consider the idea that they just used better strategies, taught themselves more, practiced harder, and worked their way through obstacles. You can do that too if you want to. Are there situations where you get stupid, where you disengage your intelligence? Next time you're in one of those situations, get yourself into a growth mindset. Think about learning, improvement, not judgment, and hook it back up. I always think of my parents. I hate to say it, but I think of them when they're trying to use something on their cell phone. And I try to tell them over and over again, if they're having difficulty with their device, like, just try it. You're not going to break it, Use your growth mindset. Experiment a little bit. And then here are some words that I just want to leave you with today. And thanks again so much for letting me speak to you about this. While you're on your personal journey, it's so important to practice self-compassion. While we all like to say that we put our growth mindsets into practice 100% of the time, there will inevitably be moments where the fixed mindset manages to push its way back through. In these situations, self-awareness to acknowledge that it's taking over actually helps you grow as a person. Life will bring you setbacks and failures at times, but it's what you make of those unpleasant instances that matters. It's what you learn and how you react and recover that will let the growth mindset back in. And when it's back in, that's when you're just about the right place to do something exciting. And that's it for me today. Thank you so much for listening.
Hey, my friends, if you enjoyed listening to this podcast, be sure to rate, review, and share your biggest takeaway. And if you're wanting more, you can access hundreds of recent speakers, book summaries, great articles, and more at no additional charge through your membership portal. You can also get involved in a Women Leaders Association mastermind group or a networking group near you. Or if you just need to access your membership portal, simply go to womenleaderspodcast.com to be connected. Because here at Women Leaders Association, we believe we go further, faster, and have more fun when we go together. That's all for today, my friends. Bye for now.